Millionaire treats pregnant girl at rural clinic and collapses when she reveals the name of the man who abandoned her. The slow hum of an old ceiling fan filled the quiet room. Dr. Ethan Mercer, once a commanding presence in elite hospitals, now wore a worn lab coat in a forgotten rural clinic. His routine felt safe, until a trembling young woman walked in, eyes cast downward. She didn't ask for help. She handed him an envelope. Inside was a name Ethan never expected to see again. Not just any name, the name he once used to escape everything. And now, the past he buried was staring him straight in the eyes. The morning sun cast long shadows across the weathered sign of the Esperanza Rural Clinic. Dr. Ethan Mercer adjusted his white coat and sipped his coffee, watching dust devils dance in the empty parking lot. This wasn't Dallas. No marble floors, no receptionists in crisp uniforms, no patients with platinum credit cards, just people who needed help. The wooden door creaked open. A young woman entered, her swollen belly pushing against a faded blue dress. Her eyes, dark and wary, avoided his. "Morning," Ethan said, offering his warmest smile. "I'm Dr. Mercer. First appointment?" She nodded, fingers gripping her worn purse. "Your name?" "Chloe Rivera," she whispered, accepting the clipboard he offered. Something about her seemed familiar, perhaps in the curve of her jaw or the way her hands moved across the paper. Ethan busied himself reviewing another patient's chart, stealing glances as she filled out her history. When she handed back the clipboard, Ethan scanned the form automatically. His eyes froze on a handwritten name in the Unknown Father section. Ryan Beckett. The pen slipped from his fingers, clattering against the floor. "Sir?" Chloe looked up, concerned. "Are you okay?" Ethan couldn't answer. Ryan Beckett. The name he'd invented 22 years ago as a medical student in Boston. A fabricated identity to escape the weight of being Ethan Mercer, heir to the Mercer pharmaceutical fortune. "Dr. Mercer?" Dr. Marta Valdez appeared in the doorway. "Everything all right?" "Fine," he managed, bending to retrieve his pen. His hand trembled. "Just paperwork." Chloe pulled a folded piece of paper from her purse. "I also brought this. My mother wrote it before she died. I thought maybe it could help with my medical history." Ethan accepted the paper cautiously, as if it might burn his fingertips. Opening it slowly, he read, "If you ever find Ryan, tell him I tried. Tell him she was born from love. He wasn't brave enough to live." The words pierced him like a physical blow. The clinic walls seemed to close in. "I need to get your ultrasound requisition," he muttered, escaping to the supply room. Alone, Ethan pressed his forehead against the cool metal cabinet. His breathing came in ragged gasps. It couldn't be possible. A coincidence. Had to be. His gaze drifted to the back of the supply cabinet. There, behind boxes of gauze, sat an old Bible he'd stashed months ago, after finding it in a donation box. He pulled it out with unsteady hands, flipping to the inside cover where, in faded blue ink, he'd written, "RB 2003, Boston, Ryan Beckett." The name he'd buried, the life he'd abandoned. And now, sitting in his waiting room, was the daughter he never knew existed. A daughter carrying a child of her own. His past hadn't just caught up with him, it had multiplied. Boston, 2003, medical school, freedom. 20-year-old Ethan Mercer, calling himself Ryan Beckett, sprinted across Harvard Yard, late for biochemistry. Rain soaked through his second-hand jacket, but he grinned. For the first time in his life, nobody expected anything from him except what he could earn with his own mind. No family legacy, no father's shadow. He collided with a girl outside the library, sending her books sprawling across wet pavement. "I'm so sorry," he said, gathering soggy textbooks. "It's fine," she replied, her accent musical. When he looked up, her smile caught him off guard. Warm, genuine, without the calculation he'd grown accustomed to from people who knew his family name. "Elena Fuentes," she said, extending her hand. "Puerto Rican, pre-med, and perpetually running late." "Ryan Beckett," he answered, the lie now comfortable on his tongue. "Also pre-med, also late." What followed was 3 months of coffee-fueled study sessions, quiet walks along the Charles River, and nights in her tiny apartment where the radiator clanked and the windows rattled. They spoke of medicine, dreams, and futures. He never mentioned Dallas, family wealth, or his real name. With Elena, Ethan discovered what it meant to be loved for himself, not his inheritance. Until that rainy April morning when she said, "I'm pregnant." His world tilted. His father's voice, stern, uncompromising, echoed in his head. A Mercer never makes mistakes. "I need time," he told her, backing toward the door. Her eyes had filled with tears. "Time for what, Ryan?" 3 days later, his father's assistant appeared at his apartment. "Your father knows everything," the man said. "He expects you home immediately. No goodbyes, no explanations. Just a midnight drive to the airport and a family jet waiting." In Dallas, his father was icily precise. "This ridiculous experiment is over. You embarrassed the family enough. That girl is not your concern." Ethan never called Elena. Pride and fear kept him silent. Months passed, then years. He convinced himself she'd lied about the pregnancy, a desperate attempt to keep him. He buried Ryan Beckett and became Ethan Mercer again. Harvard Medical, prestigious residency, heir apparent to Mercer Pharmaceuticals. Now, standing in the supply closet of a dusty Texas clinic, those carefully constructed walls crumbled. Ethan remembered Elena's last words as she stood on the library steps, rain plastering her dark hair to her face. "Whatever you're running from, Ryan, it will find you someday." The clinic door opened. Marta leaned in. "Ethan, Chloe's waiting." Taking a deep breath, Ethan returned to the examination room. Chloe sat on the table, hands protectively cradling her belly. "How far along are you?" he asked, fighting to keep his voice steady. "6 months. And the father?" "Not in the picture," she said flatly. Like father, like daughter. The irony wasn't lost on him. "This Ryan Beckett," he ventured carefully. "He was your mother's?" "The only man she ever loved," Chloe replied. "She died last year. Cancer. She never told me much about him, just that he disappeared." Ethan's throat tightened. "I'm sorry for your loss." "Doctor," Chloe said suddenly, "did you know my mother? You looked like you recognized her name in my file." The question hung between them. One word, "yes," would change everything. Ethan opened his mouth, truth and lies battling for dominance. "No," Ethan said, the lie burning his throat. "I don't think so." Chloe's shoulders slumped slightly. "I thought maybe. The way you reacted to the name just reminded me of someone," Ethan muttered, focusing intently on her chart. "We should check your iron levels. First pregnancy can be tough." The examination proceeded mechanically, his medical training carrying him through while his mind raced. With each question, he asked about her health history. A dozen more personal ones screamed silently in his head. Did Elena suffer? Did she hate him? Did Chloe grow up wondering why her father abandoned them? A week later, Chloe returned for test results. Ethan had barely slept, researching Elena Fuentes online during midnight hours. The obituary confirmed his worst fears. Died after a brief battle with pancreatic cancer. Survived by daughter Chloe and mother Sophia. No mention of a father. This time, Marta was drawing blood while Ethan reviewed results. He noticed how Marta, usually professional and detached, smiled warmly at Chloe. touching her shoulder reassuringly when the needle went in. "That Ryan name," Chloe said suddenly as Marta worked. "You ever heard it before, Dr. Mercer?" Ethan nearly dropped his clipboard. "I might have. Common name." Marta glanced at him curiously. "My mother never said much," Chloe continued. "Just that he was studying medicine, that they were young." Ethan's mouth went dry. "Sometimes young people make mistakes they regret." "Was I a mistake?" Chloe asked sharply. "That's not what I—" "Because my mother never once called me that." Chloe's eyes flashed. "Not even when we couldn't pay rent or when she worked double shifts." Ethan stood frozen as Chloe reached into her purse, extracting a worn photograph. "This is her, at Harvard." Elena's smile beamed up at him, the same smile that had once been his entire world. Her arm was thrown around a lanky young man whose face was partly cut off, but Ethan recognized his own worn leather jacket, the one his father had immediately discarded when Ethan returned to Dallas. "Pretty, wasn't she?" Chloe whispered. "Beautiful," Ethan managed, his heart hammering. Marta finished drawing blood, her expression thoughtful as she studied Ethan's reaction. "My grandmother has a letter," Chloe said as she gathered her things. "From my mother, in a lockbox. She says I can read it on my 21st birthday. That's next month." "What do you think it says?" Ethan asked, unable to stop himself. "The truth, I hope." Chloe stood to leave. "That's all I've ever wanted." After she left, Marta cornered him in the hallway. "What's going on with you and that girl?" "Nothing," Ethan snapped. 20 years working together. I've never seen you rattled," Marta persisted. "And you look at that girl like you've seen a ghost." Ethan turned away. "Drop it, Marta." That night, he couldn't sleep. At 3 a.m., he found himself in his car outside Chloe's address, gleaned from her patient file, an ethical violation that could cost him his license. The small duplex sat dark except for a single window, where a silhouette moved back and forth. Pregnant women often couldn't sleep. As dawn broke, Ethan watched an elderly woman, Sophia, he presumed, emerge with a trash bag. She paused, squinting toward his car. Ethan ducked down, but not before noticing the blue envelope tucked under her arm. Elena's letter. The one that might destroy everything he'd built. He was about to drive away when his phone rang. The clinic. An emergency. As he pulled away, he didn't notice Chloe watching from the window, memorizing his license plate. The next evening, Ethan returned to Chloe's neighborhood, parking his Mercedes 2 blocks away. The sun hung low, painting the modest homes in amber light. Children played in sprinklers on patched lawns, while parents chatted on porches. A life as foreign to him as another planet. A life that could have been his. He approached on foot, baseball cap pulled low. The Rivera house was well kept despite its age. Window boxes overflowing with geraniums, a small American flag by the door, a wooden cross above the entrance. Through the screen door, he heard a television news broadcast. Then Chloe's voice. "Abuela, is it time for church?" Moments later, grandmother and granddaughter emerged. Chloe in a simple yellow dress that accentuated her pregnancy, Sophia in her Sunday best, carrying that same blue envelope. Ethan ducked behind a neighbor's truck, heart pounding. They walked toward a white church steeple visible a few blocks away. An older man watering his lawn nodded toward Ethan. "Help you find something, son?" "Just admiring the neighborhood," Ethan stammered. "Rivera Place catch your eye?" The man chuckled. "Sophia keeps it nice, despite everything. Shame about her daughter. Good people." "They've had a tough time?" Ethan couldn't help asking. "Elena worked herself to death for that girl," the man said, gesturing toward Chloe's retreating figure. 3 jobs sometimes. Never complained. Sophia practically raised Chloe while Elena worked. Guilt clawed at Ethan's throat. "You know, the neighbor continued, studying Ethan. You remind me of someone. Can't place it. Ethan murmured thanks and walked toward the church, maintaining distance. The white building with its simple cross stood as a rebuke to his decades of silence. Inside, he slipped into the back pew as the congregation sang. Chloe's voice rose clear above others. Elena had always loved singing too. When the service ended, Ethan lingered outside, watching families emerge into the twilight. Sophia and Chloe were among the last, stopped frequently by congregants placing hands on Chloe's belly, offering blessings. A dog barked suddenly, lunging toward Ethan. He stepped backward, directly into the church's floodlight. Chloe spotted him instantly. Dr. Mercer? Sophia turned, her eyes narrowing. Recognition dawned slowly, then all at once. 22 years fell away as her face hardened with sudden certainty. You, she whispered. Ryan. Ma'am, you're mistaken, Ethan said, backing away. I was just passing. You disappeared, Sophia continued, advancing. My daughter cried for months. Abuela, what are you talking about? Chloe looked between them, confused. Ask him, Sophia said, voice trembling. Ask him why he's lurking outside our church. Neighbors turned to stare. Ethan's carefully constructed life teetered on the precipice. I'm sorry, he muttered. Wrong place. Sophia grabbed his arm with surprising strength. Coward, she hissed, always running. Chloe stepped forward, protective hand on her belly. Abuela, stop! Dr. Mercer, why are you here? Caught between two generations of women, he'd failed. Ethan found no words. Sophia relented, releasing his arm. If you want the truth, she said coldly, come tomorrow. But come as a man, not a shadow. She turned, guiding Chloe away. The blue envelope protruded from her purse, catching the streetlight. As they disappeared, the neighbor who'd spoken to Ethan earlier approached. Now I remember, he said. That photo on Elena's mantle. The boy from college. His eyes widened. You're him, aren't you? The father. The Rivera's front door opened before Ethan could knock. Sophia stood there, eyes red-rimmed but resolute. You came, she said simply. Yes. No more pretending. The living room was modest, but immaculate. Photos covered every surface. Elena's graduation, Chloe's childhood, recent sonogram images. A life documented without him. Sophia gestured to a worn armchair. Chloe's at work. Supermarket cashier. 6 months pregnant and standing all day. Each word landed like an indictment. I didn't know, Ethan whispered. About Chloe. Elena called you. For weeks. Sophia's voice was flat. Your number was disconnected. My father. A man makes his own choices, she interrupted. Elena chose to raise your daughter alone. I chose to help her. What did you choose, Dr. Mercer? The use of his real name startled him. How did you? I clean houses in River Oaks, Sophia said. Your picture was in the Chronicle last year. Mercer Pharmaceutical Air Funds Rural Clinics. Elena never knew who you really were. She reached into her apron pocket and withdrew the blue envelope. She wrote this when she got sick. Said if Chloe ever found you, to make sure you read it. The envelope felt impossibly heavy in his hands. Elena's handwriting hadn't changed, the same looping script that had once filled margin notes in his textbooks. My dearest Ryan, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and somehow Chloe found you. Don't blame her for searching. Everyone deserves to know where they come from. I tried to reach you after you disappeared. For months, I called, wrote letters. Eventually, I understood you'd made your choice. I made mine too, to love our daughter enough for both of us. I never told Chloe you abandoned us. I said you were young, scared, that maybe you never got my messages. I gave her hope instead of bitterness. Maybe that was wrong. I'm writing this because doctors say I don't have much time. Pancreatic cancer moves quickly. Here's what I want you to know. Chloe was born on Christmas morning. She weighed 6 pounds, 8 ounces. She had your eyes and my smile. Her first word was book. She broke her arm climbing a tree when she was 7. She plays piano beautifully. She wants to be a teacher. She is the best of me and you. The you I knew, who talked about healing people, who kissed me under Boston snowfall, who promised impossible things. I don't want your money or explanations. Just know that when I think of you, even now, it's with remembrance of love, not hate. Take care of our girl if she needs you. Always. Elena. Ethan's vision blurred with tears. For the first time since his mother died when he was 12, he wept openly, shoulders shaking with grief for the life he could have had, for Elena's suffering, for Chloe's fatherless childhood. Sophia watched silently, offering no comfort. When he could speak again, Ethan whispered, "I'm so sorry." "Not to me," Sophia said. "To her." The front door opened. Chloe stood frozen in the entryway, supermarket uniform rumpled, eyes wide at the scene before her. "Why are you here?" she asked quietly. Before Ethan could answer, his phone rang, Marta's ringtone. He almost ignored it, but years of medical training took over. "Ethan, multi-car pileup on Highway 16, Marta said urgently. "All hands." "I have to go," he told Chloe, standing. "Emergency at the clinic." "Of course you do." Bitterness tinged her voice. Ethan hesitated, then placed Elena's letter on the coffee table. "I'll come back. I promise." As he rushed out, he heard Chloe's words follow him. "I just wanted to know why." "Now I do." The accusation echoed as he drove, lights flashing toward the clinic. History repeating itself. Ethan Mercer, running away again. Blood and chaos filled the next 12 hours as the clinic team worked to stabilize crash victims before ambulances could transport them to San Antonio. By dawn, Ethan had performed 2 emergency surgeries, set countless fractures, and stitched what felt like miles of lacerations. When the last patient was evacuated, he slumped against the wall, exhaustion seeping through every pore. "You missed 3 shifts last week," Marta said, handing him coffee. "Now you pull a 12-hour trauma sprint." "What's going on, Ethan?" He stared into the bitter liquid. "Remember Boston? Elena Fuentes?" Marta's eyebrows rose. She'd been his resident when he was an intern. "The girl you left behind. What about her?" "She had my daughter." His voice cracked. "Chloe is my daughter." Silence stretched between them. "Jesus, Ethan." Marta finally exhaled. "The pregnant girl?" He nodded miserably. "So not only did you abandon a pregnant girlfriend, but now your daughter is about to become a single mother herself?" Marta's tone was merciless. "The cycle continues." "I didn't know," he protested weakly. "Would it have mattered?" she challenged. "You ran once. What are you running from now?" The question cut to his core. What was he afraid of? Scandal? His father's disapproval? Or facing the magnitude of his failure? "Fix this," Marta said simply, turning away. For days, Ethan avoided the clinic, driving past Chloe's house instead, watching from a distance. He saw her struggling with grocery bags, rubbing her lower back in pain, sitting alone on the porch swing. One evening, he followed her to a small market, where she counted coins carefully at the checkout. The clerk shook his head when she tried to purchase prenatal vitamins. Not enough money. Ethan stepped forward, credit card extended. "I've got it." Chloe's eyes widened, then narrowed. "I don't need charity." "It's not charity," he said quietly. "It's the very least I can do." Later that night, he left a basket of fruit, vitamins, and infant essentials on their porch, driving away before anyone saw him. The next morning, The basket sat untouched on his own doorstep. Attached was a note in Sophia's handwriting. She doesn't need things. She needs truth. Ethan wrote a letter. Pages of explanation, apology, regret. Then tore it up. Words seemed inadequate against decades of absence. Sunday came. Drawn by forces he couldn't name, Ethan found himself outside the white church again. Through open windows, he heard singing. Chloe's voice rose above others in a hymn Elena had loved. Ethan stood in the shadows, tears streaming freely. A passing congregant noticed him. "You coming in, brother?" "I don't belong there," Ethan whispered. The man clasped his shoulder. "That's exactly why you should." But Ethan remained outside, listening as the music swelled. The voices inside spoke of forgiveness, redemption, second chances, concepts that seemed as distant as stars. When the service ended, he slipped away before being seen. Back home, his phone showed 3 missed calls from the Mercer Pharmaceutical Board. His father's health was declining. They needed him to take over operations. Another choice loomed. Another chance to run. That night, he drove again to Chloe's neighborhood. A small gathering filled the yard, a baby shower. Women laughed, passed gifts, placed hands on Chloe's belly. Sophia orchestrated everything, her fierce love evident in every gesture. From his car, Ethan watched the family he should have had, the life that continued without him. Chloe opened presents, onesies, diapers, a handmade quilt. When she unwrapped a small music box, she immediately wound it and held it to her ear, smiling exactly as Elena once had. Ethan reached for his door handle, suddenly determined to join them, to claim his place. Then his phone rang. Marta again. "Chloe left a message," she said without preamble. "She's leaving for San Diego tomorrow. Said not to schedule any more appointments." "San Diego?" Panic surged through him. "Why?" "Her mother's friend offered her a place to stay. She wants the baby born there." Leaving, just like that. History repeating, roles reversed. "When?" Ethan demanded. "Bus leaves at 6 a.m. The gathering at the Rivera house continued, oblivious to Ethan's world collapsing once again, this time by his own design. Pre-dawn darkness shrouded the bus station as Ethan screeched into the parking lot. The terminal's fluorescent lights cast sickly shadows across rain-slick pavement. Inside, a few drowsy travelers clutched coffee cups and overnight bags. No sign of Chloe. "The 6 a.m. to San Diego?" he asked the ticket agent breathlessly. "Left 10 minutes ago." The woman barely looked up. "Always on time, that one." 10 minutes. After 22 years of absence, he'd missed his daughter by 10 minutes. Ethan slumped onto a bench, his head in his hands. The universe itself seemed determined to extract payment for his past sins. The drive home felt endless. Rain began to fall, gentle at first, then torrential, matching his internal storm. He'd failed Elena, failed Chloe, failed the grandchild he would never know. When he pulled into his driveway, something on the porch caught his eye. A small package, protected from rain by the overhang. Inside, he tore open the soggy paper to find a pair of tiny hand-knitted booties. No note. No explanation needed. Ethan sank to his knees, cradling the minuscule shoes. They represented everything he'd thrown away. Family, connection, legacy beyond wealth and status. Memory assaulted him. Boston, 2003. His dorm phone ringing repeatedly. Elena's number flashing on caller ID. His finger hovering over the answer button, then deliberately pressing ignore. Again. Again. The truth he'd evaded for decades crashed through his carefully constructed defenses. He hadn't just abandoned Elena. He'd chosen to believe she was lying, because it was easier than fighting his father, easier than the responsibility of a child, easier than becoming the man she believed he could be. Ethan stared at his reflection in the hallway mirror and saw, for the first time, his father's cold eyes staring back. The realization hit with physical force. He had become exactly what he'd tried to escape. Throughout the night, Ethan paced his empty house, the tiny booties clutched in his fist. By dawn, clarity emerged from chaos. He called the pharmaceutical board, then his father's nurse. The conversation was brief, brutal. "I'm not taking over the company," he told his father's raspy protests. "Sell it, donate it, burn it down. I don't care." "You ungrateful." "I have a daughter," Ethan interrupted, "and a grandchild coming. That's my legacy now." Next, he contacted his attorney. Instructions were precise. Transfer clinic ownership to Marta, establish trust funds for Chloe and her child, sell his Dallas estate. By noon, Ethan had resigned his hospital privileges. By evening, essential belongings were packed into his car. Marta found him clearing out his clinic office. "I tracked down Chloe's San Diego address," she said without preamble, holding out a slip of paper. Ethan stared at it, then shook his head. "No." "No?" Marta's eyebrows shot up. "After all this drama?" "She doesn't need me showing up, disrupting her fresh start," Ethan said quietly. "But she needs to know she's not alone, that the cycle ends here." "What are you planning?" Ethan smiled sadly. "To do what I should have done 22 years ago. Be available, without expectations, for as long as it takes. And if she never wants to see you, then I'll have honored her choice," he said simply. "Something I never gave Elena." 3 days later, Ethan signed lease papers on a small medical practice in Alamogordo, New Mexico, 30 miles from San Diego, close enough to reach quickly if needed, far enough to respect boundaries. The office was modest, nothing like his luxurious Dallas practice. A weathered sign outside read, "Family Medicine." Ethan traced the word family with his finger, feeling the weight of its meaning for the first time. Inside, he placed the tiny booties on his new desk. Beside them, Elena's letter, now carefully preserved in a frame, and a new envelope, marked simply, "When you're ready," containing everything Chloe might someday want to know about her father, including why Ryan Beckett became Ethan Mercer, and how completely he regretted the transformation. Meanwhile, in San Diego, Chloe gazed out her bedroom window at the unfamiliar skyline, one hand resting on her belly, the other clutching a small photograph of her mother, the only connection to a past she was still trying to understand. 2 years dissolved, like morning mist. Ethan's small practice in Alamogordo thrived, serving primarily elderly patients and young families who couldn't afford insurance. He charged what people could pay, sometimes accepting homemade tamales or lawn mowing as payment. No one knew Dr. Mercer had once been heir to a pharmaceutical empire. No one knew he checked the San Diego birth announcements daily until he found it. Isabella Elena Rivera, 7 pounds, 3 ounces, born to Chloe Rivera. He sent no gifts, made no contact, just established a trust fund in Isabella's name and continued his quiet vigil 30 miles away. His house remained Spartan. Medical journals, a piano he was teaching himself to play, and walls adorned with paintings from local artists. In his bedroom sat a small box containing the only luxury he'd kept: his mother's sapphire earrings, someday meant for Chloe. Every Sunday, he attended the small Methodist church in town, though faith came slowly to a man who'd spent decades believing only in science and wealth. Spring arrived with Alamogordo's annual Cherry Blossom Festival. The town square transformed into a riot of pink and white, vendors hawking handicrafts and local foods. Ethan wandered through, nodding to patients who greeted him warmly. A child's voice rose above the crowd, singing. Something in the melody transported Ethan instantly to Boston, to Elena humming while studying. He turned slowly, heart pounding. A little girl with dark curls stood by the fountain, spinning in circles, singing a lullaby that Elena had often sung. The same song Ethan had heard Chloe sing at church years ago. Beside the child stood Sophia, older but unbowed, watching her great-granddaughter with fierce pride. Her eyes met Ethan's across the crowded square. No surprise registered on her face. Instead, she offered the slightest nod, as if confirming something long suspected. Ethan stood frozen, unable to move toward them, unable to look away. Then he saw her, Chloe, standing at a craft booth, examining handmade jewelry. Her face had matured, the hardness softened. When she looked up and saw Ethan, tears immediately filled her eyes. He took one hesitant step forward. Chloe shook her head subtly, not in rejection, but in caution. "Not now," she mouthed silently. Sophia gathered little Isabella, whispered something in her ear. The child glanced at Ethan curiously, then waved with innocent friendliness. Ethan raised his hand in return, feeling something crack open inside his chest. Those same dark eyes. Elena's smile. His mother's chin. As they disappeared into the crowd, Ethan noticed a flyer left at his feet. The Alamogordo Community School was hosting a career day the following month. He folded it carefully and placed it in his pocket. That evening, he sat at his piano, playing the lullaby he'd heard Isabella singing. The notes came haltingly at first, then with growing confidence, like the tentative renewal of hope after a long winter. 2 weeks later, a nurse interrupted his morning appointments. "Dr. Mercer, there's someone in the waiting room insisting on seeing you." Not a patient. Ethan followed her down the hallway, adjusting his stethoscope nervously. The waiting room fell silent as he entered. Sophia Rivera sat ramrod straight in a corner chair, her eyes sharp as ever. "Mrs. Rivera," Ethan said softly, "is everything all right?" "She knows you're here," Sophia stated without preamble. "Has known for months." Ethan swallowed hard. "And?" "And nothing. She watches, waits, decides." Sophia's expression softened slightly. "You were watching too. I saw you, at church sometimes, never coming inside." "I didn't want to intrude," Ethan explained, "so instead you moved to the same small region, establish a practice treating the poor, and wait 2 years without a word?" Sophia snorted. "Dramatic, like your father." Ethan flinched. "I'm nothing like him." "No," Sophia agreed unexpectedly. "He would never have waited silently. That patience, that's Elena in you." She stood, gathering her purse. Career day at the school. Isabella's class. Go or don't go. Your choice. As she reached the door, Sophia turned back. "She kept the booties you left, in a box with her mother's things." When she was gone, Ethan canceled his remaining appointments and drove to the desert outside town. For hours, he sat watching the sunset paint the mountains gold, then crimson, then deep purple. A choice loomed: step forward or remain in shadow. For the first time in his life, Ethan trusted that whatever happened would be exactly what he deserved. No more running, no more hiding. The career day invitation, once a possibility, now felt like destiny. Kindergarteners fidgeted on the colorful carpet as Ethan explained stethoscopes and reflexes. 20 pairs of wide eyes followed his every move, none more intently than Isabella's. Her dark curls bounced as she raised her hand for the 5th time. "Do doctors fix hearts too?" she asked. "Some do," Ethan replied, fighting the tremor in his voice. "They're called cardiologists." "My mommy says her heart got broken once," Isabella announced. "Did she need a cardiologist," Ethan supplied gently. "Sometimes broken hearts heal on their own, with time and care." Isabella nodded seriously. That's what Abuela says, too. When the presentation ended, children swarmed him for stickers and pretend prescriptions. Isabella hung back, studying him with an intensity that belied her 5 years. "You have eyes like mine," she declared finally. Ethan knelt to her level. "I think you might be right. Mommy has pictures of a man with eyes like mine, too," she continued matter-of-factly. "She keeps them in a blue box." Before Ethan could respond, the teacher called the children back to their desks. As he gathered his demonstration materials, he felt a presence in the doorway. Chloe stood watching, arms crossed protectively over her chest. "Nice presentation, Dr. Mercer," she said formally. "Thank you for allowing me to come," he replied, heart pounding. "Isabella has been talking about doctors for months," Chloe said. "Ever since we moved here, and she saw your clinic sign." An uncomfortable silence stretched between them. "How long have you known I was in Alamogordo?" Ethan finally asked. "Since the beginning." A hint of challenge flashed in her eyes. "The clinic administrator is my friend Maria's mother." "I wasn't trying to intrude," he said quickly. "I just wanted to be available." "Available," Chloe repeated, testing the word. 22 years too late. The barb struck true. Ethan absorbed it, without defense. "I know," he said simply. Something in his acceptance seemed to soften her. "Isabella has a half-day today. Would you like to have lunch with us?" The local diner buzzed with lunchtime crowds. Isabella chatted nonstop about school, friends, and her pet goldfish named Sparkle. Ethan hung on every word, memorizing the cadence of her speech, the way she gestured with her hands exactly as Elena had. Chloe watched them interact, her expression guarded but not hostile. When Isabella went to choose a dessert from the display case, Chloe leaned forward. "I read Mom's letter," she said quietly. "The one she left for you." "She was extraordinary," Ethan whispered. "She never said a bad word about you." Chloe's voice hitched. "Even when she was dying, she made excuses for you. Said you were young, scared." "I was," Ethan acknowledged. "But that's no excuse." "No," Chloe agreed. "It's not." Isabella returned, proudly carrying a massive slice of chocolate cake. "Can I share with Dr. Ethan?" Chloe smiled gently. "His name is Dr. Mercer, sweetie." "Actually," Ethan said carefully, "my friends call me Ethan." 2 months passed. Occasional lunches became regular Sunday afternoon visits. Isabella would show Ethan her drawings, her collection of rocks, her attempts at writing her name. They built elaborate blanket forts in Chloe's modest living room and read picture books about brave princesses and adventurous mice. Chloe maintained a polite distance, neither encouraging nor discouraging the growing bond between Ethan and Isabella. Her walls remained high, reinforced by years of wondering, of explaining to teachers why no father attended school events, of watching her mother struggle alone. Then, one rainy Tuesday, Ethan's receptionist announced an unexpected visitor. Isabella stood in the waiting room, clutching a toy medical bag, Chloe hovering anxiously behind her. "She's been asking to see where you work," Chloe explained, avoiding his eyes. "I didn't realize you'd be with patients." "I'm between appointments," Ethan said quickly. "Perfect timing." He knelt to Isabella's level. "Would you like a tour, Dr. Rivera?" The child nodded solemnly, extracting a plastic stethoscope from her bag. As Ethan showed her examination rooms and equipment, Isabella mimicked his professional demeanor, nodding seriously at his explanations. When he introduced her to his elderly patient, Mrs. Gonzalez, Isabella puffed with importance. "I'm going to be a doctor too," she announced. "Like my grandpa." The words hung in the sudden silence. Chloe's sharp intake of breath was audible from the doorway. Isabella, oblivious to the impact of her declaration, continued examining Mrs. Gonzalez's bracelet. Later, as they prepared to leave, Isabella presented Ethan with a crayon drawing, 3 stick figures holding hands beneath a yellow sun. "Mommy, me, "And you," she explained. Ethan accepted it with trembling hands. "It's beautiful. Thank you." When Isabella skipped ahead to the car, Chloe lingered. "She figured it out herself," she said quietly. "I never told her." "Children are perceptive," Ethan replied. "What do you want me to say if she asks directly?" Chloe's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know if I can call you her grandfather, but she deserves to know you. If you stay." "I'm not going anywhere," Ethan said firmly. "Not ever again." Chloe nodded, wiping her eyes. Mom would have wanted this. She always believed in second chances. As they turned to leave, Chloe hesitated. "Isabella's school concert is Friday. She has a solo." The invitation hung between them, tentative, fragile as a soap bubble. "I'll be there," Ethan promised, feeling for the first time that he might be worthy of the gift being offered. That night, he framed Isabella's drawing and placed it next to Elena's letter on his bedside table. 2 generations of Rivera women slowly reclaiming pieces of his broken heart. "Isabella Rivera!" The kindergarten teacher's voice echoed through the school auditorium. Isabella stepped forward, resplendent in a blue graduation cap fashioned from construction paper. The moving up ceremony marked the children's transition to first grade, complete with tiny diplomas and proud speeches. Ethan sat beside Chloe in the 3rd row, Sophia on her other side. The past months had brought a careful peace between them, not forgiveness exactly, but a shared commitment to Isabella's happiness. "When I call your name," the teacher announced, "please tell us what you want to be when you grow up, and your full name for the special certificate." Isabella took the microphone confidently. "I want to be a doctor who sings," she declared, prompting chuckles from the audience. "And my name is Isabella Elena Rivera." She paused, looking directly at Ethan. In the 6 months since his clinic visit, their bond had deepened through weekly outings, bedtime stories, and conversations about everything from dinosaurs to star constellations. Isabella handed the microphone back to her teacher, then suddenly reclaimed it. "Wait," she said. "Can I add another name?" The teacher nodded, confused. "You want to use your middle name differently?" "No," Isabella replied. "I want to add my grandpa's name, because he teaches me doctor things." Murmurs rippled through the audience. Chloe tensed beside Ethan, while Sophia reached across to grasp his hand, the first gesture of acceptance she'd ever offered. Isabella looked at Ethan, her expression suddenly uncertain. "Can I use your name too? Is that okay?" Ethan stood, legs barely supporting him, and moved to kneel before his granddaughter. "Only if you really want to," he whispered, voice thick with emotion. "Names are important. They should be real." Isabella nodded solemnly. "It is real. You're really my grandpa now." She turned back to the teacher. "Isabella Elena Rivera Mercer," she announced proudly. "That's my whole name." The audience applauded as Isabella accepted her certificate. Ethan remained frozen, overwhelmed by the public acknowledgement, not just of biology, but of relationship, of belonging. When he returned to his seat, Chloe was crying silently. "Are you okay with this?" he whispered. She nodded, surprising him by taking his hand. She needs her history. All of it. After the ceremony, they gathered for cupcakes in the school cafeteria. Isabella proudly introduced Ethan to her friend's parents. "This is my grandpa. He was lost, but now he's found." The simple explanation, devoid of judgment or complexity, reflected Isabella's innocent understanding of his absence and return. Later, at Chloe's house, Isabella presented him with her graduation artwork, a family tree. Unlike traditional versions, hers spiraled outward from her name in the center, with branches connecting to Chloe, Sophia, and tentative lines extending to Grandpa Ethan and Grandma Elena in heaven. Teacher said families come in all shapes, Isabella explained. "Mine is a spiral." As evening fell, Ethan prepared to leave. At the door, Chloe handed him a small package. "What's this?" he asked. "Open it when you get home," she replied. Alone in his living room, Ethan carefully unwrapped the package to find the blue envelope that had contained Elena's letter, now emptied of its original contents. Inside was a new letter from Chloe. "Dear Ethan, for 20 years, I imagined what I'd say if I ever met you. I rehearsed accusations, questions, even forgiveness speeches. None of them matter anymore. What matters is this: my daughter loves you. She sees in you what my mother must have seen in the young man you once were. And watching you with her, I'm beginning to see it too. I don't know if I'll ever call you Dad. Some wounds heal slowly. But Isabella deserves a grandfather who adores her, and you've proven that's who you want to be. Mom always said time reveals who people truly are. I think she'd be proud of who you've become. The envelope is yours to fill with new memories. Start with this." Chloe, beneath the letter, lay a photograph taken at the graduation ceremony. Isabella between Chloe and Ethan, all three smiling, Sophia standing behind them, her hand resting lightly on Ethan's shoulder. A family, imperfectly healed but whole. Ethan placed the photo in the envelope along with Isabella's drawing. There would be more to add: birthday cards, school achievements, ordinary moments that, strung together, would create a legacy beyond anything his father had imagined for him. The next morning, Ethan arrived at his clinic to find an unexpected patient on his schedule. Chloe Rivera, 9:15 a.m. When she entered his office, her expression was calm, determined. "I'd like to volunteer here," she said without preamble. "I'm studying for my nursing assistant certification." "I'd be honored," Ethan replied carefully. "Not for you," Chloe clarified. "For the people who need help. Like Mom always did." "Of course." Chloe lingered by the door. "Isabella asked if you could teach her piano. Apparently, you've been holding out on us." "Anytime," Ethan said, hope rising in his chest. "Sunday afternoons work best," Chloe replied, "after church." The invitation to Isabella's life, to their Sundays, perhaps someday to their hearts, hung between them. "I'll be there," Ethan promised, as Isabella's words echoed in his mind. He was lost, but now he's found. In that moment, Ethan understood that the name he'd once abandoned and the one he'd hidden behind had finally merged into the one that mattered most: family. Some wounds take years to heal, and some truths arrive only when we're ready to face them. But even late, redemption has power. Ethan didn't get to change the past, but he changed what mattered: the future. Because sometimes being present today is more powerful than any apology from yesterday. What about you? Have you ever let silence take the place of truth? And what did you think of this story? If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. Leave a like and tell us in the comments what country or city you're watching from. It helps us create stories that truly connect with you. And don't forget to watch the next recommended video by clicking on the final card now appearing on your screen. Thank you for being here.